You guys know what time it is. Get strapped in and ready for some good times. This is the Blowed Out Podcast. What is up, everybody? It is your fatty with a natty coming at you from the increasingly chilly yet still no snow northern Utah. Up until today, Lord, it was starting to seem like my ex-wife, which we'll just leave at that. It finally rained today, though, and rained like a madman for a little while, but still no snow, which, you know, I'm okay without the white stuff, but our springtime activities are going to be hindered if it just runs into, next August when it does finally decide to show up, because we all know it will. I don't know how things are in your neck of the woods, but hopefully everybody's doing okay at least. It is episode 68, and Lord, man, there's so much stuff to talk about. Of course, just overwhelming amounts of ridiculousness. I did catch a little bit of the presidential speech tonight. I saw a lot of kickback already on social media as far as, lies and gross and blah, blah. It sounds like every other one of every other administration that's ever been, and we talk about this all too often. It's the same horseshit rhetoric that they all spout because they think it's somehow going to help. So I don't know why anybody's too worked up about it. Again, at this point, everyone's still super worked up about fishing boats being blown out of the water, which apparently we continue to do. And okay. Again, we don't know. We're only ever going to know what they tell us. So they might be fishing boats. They might be drug boats. They might be full of people. Who knows? They're not going to tell us. So speculation isn't going to get anyone anywhere other than the continued hate and divisiveness that is already overly prevalent. Between that and the Bondi stuff, obviously, our thoughts go out to all the families involved, the Boston University thing, all the madness going on in the world. Our thoughts go out to all the folks and families involved. They're all tragic. None of them should be downplayed, which I'm not, by the way. But I also, it's no longer surprising to me, sadly. I expected this. I expected it to also get worse the closer to the holidays we got, and here we are. So it also still gives me a reason to pause, wondering why everyone else didn't see it or expect it also. Not glass half empty mentality, and obviously not wishing anything bad upon anyone, but the writing was on the wall, or is on the wall. It's just not gonna get any better, unfortunately. And I hope and I pray, like always, that I'm wrong about that. And for those of you who know me well, I've probably said it before. I don't actually pray, but you know what I mean. The sentiment is there. But just like previous episodes, I don't honestly see it going anywhere. And I'm not entirely certain why anyone else does either. Again, I hope it's not the case where you are. I hope it's not the case, period. But I genuinely still think it's going to get a lot better before it gets worse. And that's unfortunately just one of those things. And it much like everything else, it's a pretty easy prediction. And I wouldn't even go so far as to call it a prediction. It's just easy to read the room and the writing on the wall and know that that's just how it's going to be. Unfortunately, there is no magic wand to be waved. There is no proverbial snap of the fingers to make it all just go away overnight. So there has to be a continuing series or string of events for things to change. I recently had a conversation about this with my kids' mom. I was trying to decide which way I was going to call her this week. My ex-wife, I guess, however you want to call it, and she was kind of upset that I had mentioned on social media about how the protests and things of that nature have basically gotten nowhere. And she took the other side of that argument, saying that, it was bad of me to advocate not doing it or to continue saying that it was a waste of time. But to the degree of, and I told her this, much like I think I've told you, I'm certain I've told you guys before, but, if we're talking a 1,000,000-man march with Martin Luther King or, some other ginormous event, then okay, sure, someone may listen. But 30 or 40 or 100 or 200 people in, podunk cities across the nation, I just don't see that doing anything but falling on deaf ears. Clearly, I could be wrong about that, and I hope I am, but it's going to take a mass event, which means that when you can't even put 100 people in the same room, that can't even just be in there without arguing amongst themselves and that 100 people, then it's certainly not going to happen with 1,000,000 plus enough to be a major shifting event to where they have no choice but to listen. Again, these small efforts, admirable, but I wish it wasn't the case that I feel like they're just falling on deaf ears. Again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, like when I was 2. I know I say that a lot, but it's true. I just don't see a great way out of this until we can all come together, and I mean all. And I really don't see that happening soon. Later, perhaps. I hope sooner than later, but I really don't see it happening sooner than later. So again, I don't have the answers. I don't know if anyone does. But theoretically, somebody somewhere has at least a better answer than none, right? So then we could branch off and talk about things like Rob Reiner and his wife. R.I.P. Much like with many other events, the commander-in-chief, right, wrong, or indifferent, he is the commander-in-chief, decided to spout off some dumb shit on social media, which he's famous for, so I don't know why anyone lets it get in their craw. Like, you should just expect it like I do, and then everything's cool because you can just laugh and go, ha, saw that coming. Now, whether or not his statements of the kid, Nick, I believe is the kid's name, who they have now formally charged in his parents' death, sadly. You can say TDS or any of that nonsense, but by the sounds of it, this person, I was going to say kid, but he's 30 or something like that. And technically, he's a kid to me, but apparently he has had rampant drug and or alcohol issues for years. I saw something that said he'd been in and out of rehab like 18 times or something like that. The dude has clearly got issues and demons, and apparently they had been in an argument earlier that night, about God knows what. There's a solid chance that this kid has silently been planning this for years. Who knows? But for anyone to blame it on Trump is just ridiculous. Trump didn't do it. I guess, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he sent him a text message and said, hey, bro, tonight's the night, and sent him like a heart emoji. I don't know, but it much like a lot of other things going on in the world or in the current political climate or any situation, for any one person or any one entity or anyone to blame things solely on Trump is just ludicrous. Nothing is single-handedly his fault, other than apparently Rosie O'Donnell's rage. She probably blames him for being fat too, but that's not how it works, and we all know that. So, it is what it is. But the people who say, Trump this and Trump that and everything else, and again, you guys know I'm not a Trump guy. Like, he's not my dude. None of them are my dude. But I also understand that there are only so many things, and he only has so much reach within his actual power without having to go through other channels, that he literally can't just say, ha, done, or I did that, or bingo, bango, or, whatever. That's just not how it works, and we all know that. I think people there can't possibly be that many people who don't understand how things work. I think they are allowing themselves to be so blinded by their hatred for him that they forget that this is the way it actually works. Much like all the rest of them, Biden, Obama, Clinton, Reagan, old Slicky Dick or whatever, you get the gist. None of them are able to just wink at someone and make it so. They're just not. Now, if they have a whole bunch of people in their pocket, it's certainly easier. I don't disagree. But still, that is the reason that there are branches upon branches of governmental overreach, oversight, over everything. So that's just not how it works. I don't understand how people are allowing themselves to be so blinded by rage or hatred for anyone. That they think that it's just that easy. It's just not. Sorry. Yes, there are people. Yes, I do think that there are probably a good couple handfuls of, say, ICE agents that are taking things way too far because someone says, oh, I'm just doing my job. and they take that to the fullest extent of what they can. But it's just like everything else, all the way down to municipal level government. The sheriff, the Weber County Sheriff, or the Ogden City Police Department, or, Mayberry Police Squad, whatever. You're always going to have a handful of folks who have some sort of little man syndrome, or, a little bit of power. I don't know. I wish I had a little better demographic information on you guys, just so, I could say, much like probably where a lot of you guys are from, there's going to be one cop out of 5 that, was bullied, and now he's got a little bit of power, and he takes it to the extreme. We've all seen it. I guarantee we've all dealt with it. Everybody knows one, right? It's the same thing. So I'm certain there are a lot of people who go, well, Trump's my boss, and he told me to do it, so I did it. And that's just that. Now, we've talked about it before. There is a fine line between believing in something or doing your job because times are tough as shit, and I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to do whatever I'm told. Same thing, trickle-down effect. Shit rolls downhill, and we all know it, sadly. So, do I think that all of those things take place? Absolutely. Do I think it is to the degree or as rampant as some would like to believe? No, I just don't. There are, like I said, I'm certain that no one wants to lose their job, obviously, first and foremost. But there is also a fine line between, hey, I was told to do this and I don't want to lose my job. Well, I'm here to tell you, I was told, let's see, what year is it? So about 7 years ago, 7.5, I guess now, maybe pushing 8 years ago, I was rebuilding an airplane, a C-130 to be exact, for the Department of Defense. It was an airplane that we were rebuilding, or refurbishing rather, for the State Department, that they were going to in turn give to Chile. I even said it right. That particular airplane was an old girl. If I remember right, it was I don't remember. But let's call it a 1962 model. It was maybe a 61 or a 63, but I think it was a 62 model. So it was old. It was an E model. They had pulled it out of the boneyard and brought it up here to Utah to be refurbished to give to Chile. As some sort of State Department, who knows, gift, trade, I don't know. It was a turd. Okay, of course, it was a turd. It's 2017, and we actually probably got it in 2015. But either way, it was a turd. It had been sitting in the desert for a long time, so it needed to be completely gone through and gold-plated for this State Department deal. Well, as a depot maintenance facility, we had other aircraft and other customers who were priority because they were paying, like you would take your car to the shop. They run it just like a business. So if you happen to, be, let's call it the Nevada Air National Guard, and you had a C-130 that needed to be overhauled, you had to have it in your budget, and then you had to schedule it with the shop, and then you had to send it to the shop and pay for all the overhaul and everything, just like you would your car at a shop. Well, the State Department deal didn't, of course, work that way. They just said, hey, we're the State Department, and you're going to rebuild this airplane, because we said so. So that aircraft would commonly get pushed, taken back down off the jacks, slap the wheels and tires back on it, and then shove it out into the snowbank because there were more important planes that needed to be worked on first. So it would be torn to a skeleton. I mean, literally. You guys, some of you may have seen this stuff. Some of you possibly couldn't believe what I'm even saying. All the major structural panels and outer wings and tail section, like this thing is just a skeleton. It just looks like an erector set at this point. We would slap the wheels and tires back on it and roll it back out in the snow for months at a time until there wasn't something more pressing. And then we'd roll it back in, put it back up on jacks, take the wheels and tires back off, and start working on it again. Well, the problem with that is with all those major components and structural panels removed, every time you move it, every time you take it down off the jacks, that airframe tweaks. Literally. Like I say, it's just an erector set. So you push on it funky and it just twists and bends and warps and does all kinds of horrible things. Well, so we did this for like 2 years with this particular plane. And some of us would voice our concerns of, hey, it's never going to go back together correctly. It just won't. We took it off jacks and we moved it with all this stuff taken off. It literally is trying to fold itself into a taco. It's never going to go back together correctly. And if we continue to do these subpar maintenance practices, there's a solid chance it's going to get someone killed. Well, in 2017, I was a wage leader for the Department of Defense on C-130s. And it was my job to ensure that the maintenance was being done correctly and that all of my mechanics were trained and had all of their training, their annual training was, done and all of those things. And I continued to try and be the voice of reason and say, this plane is jacked up, and not jacks jacked up. Like, this plane is a horrific pile of shit, and now we have ruined it by doing this, shoving it outside and bringing it back in and everything for 2 years. It's never going to be right again. And that went on, and the more I tried to be the grease in the squeaky wheel, or try and get grease in the squeaky wheel, rather, obviously put me on a list. And so I was hit with several failure to follow directives, which ultimately led to them inviting me not to come back. Long story short, my point to that whole story is that there is such a thing of doing your job because you're told so. And then when you get to a point and you realize that your job is going to get someone killed, then you have to decide whether or not you're the person to just salute, which I didn't have to do, by the way, but to just say, yes, sir, and go and do it because that's your job and you don't want to lose it. Or you have to say, hey, if we continue to do this, someone is going to die. And sadly, about 6 months after they invited me not to come back, that plane, unfortunately, buried itself in the dirt and killed all 5 people on board. But that is the risk that I had to take by telling them it was going to happen and risking losing my job. So, again, long story short, there are people who don't want to lose their job, but there are also still people out there with ethics and morals. And after 6 months in court trying to clear my name of saying that I told them this was going to happen and they shouldn't have been doing this in the first place, and I was targeted and blah, 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 which I didn't even care. I just wanted my name off the damn paperwork because I knew it was going to happen, and ultimately it did. So I still think that amongst all of this, ICE stuff, and even the guys that are dealing with the boats in Venezuela and everything else, at some point, if it was so far beyond right, morally and ethically, there would be a mass exodus. And there may be, I don't know. I haven't seen anything about that. It may have started, it may have happened, it may not be because it isn't yet. I don't know. But I think given time, all these things will come to light, or they will just continue because they are justified. I don't know. I can't say. Honestly, I kind of went down that rabbit hole, and I'm sorry. I hope it was at least entertaining. But I just think that, much like I've said many times before, yes, it's going to get worse, but I genuinely do hope that it eventually gets better. So I think we're still probably in that neighborhood of, shit still seems to be getting worse. But I still have high hopes for a sunrise to go with what seems to be the current darkness. Anyhow, I'm going to take a break and we'll be back in a minute. Are you a business owner or marketing director for your company? Would you like to explore the potential benefits of advertising on the show? The Blowed Out podcast currently reaches listeners in over 104 cities spread across 13 countries worldwide. To explore advertising options, including budgeting and frequency, email us at blowedoutpodcast@gmail.com and be sure to include marketing in the subject line. All right, guys, we're back and trying to decide all the things we could talk about or all the things I may miss. I was going to bring up Jasmine Crockett, but in my opinion, that joke just kind of writes itself, along with AOC and Harris. That's a hard one, honestly, for me, guys. Jasmine Crockett, first of all, I don't believe, much like AOC, has the chops to do anything but run their chops. And that's just my personal opinion. But when she speaks, for the most part, it's just comedy to me. And granted, I'm no better. However, if you're going to say the things that she says or they say, or all of them, like I said, Maxine Waters, Kamala Harris, all of them, they kind of just come off as ridiculous to me. And that has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than just how they are. We joke a lot on this show, as you may have noticed. I was just talking with a very dear friend earlier about a situation in the past that was super funny, including a dear friend of the show and of mine and ours, the GMD, as we love to refer to him, where there were jokes made in a situation that made someone else very uncomfortable. He's black. I'm not. There is still like a ginormous stigma surrounding things like that. And I personally don't get it. I don't see people that way. And I'm certain I've talked about it before. If you're a good person, I don't care where you're from or what color you are or anything else. And if you're fam, then that goes a step even further. But again, to relate that back, I'm sure that a lot of people think that I say these things leaning towards that that line of reasoning that all of the above mentioned wannabe presidential candidates or political folks all share in the fact that they are not white. Well, allow me to be the first to put that to bed, because it does not matter what color they are. I do believe, like in the case of Jasmine Crockett, that she is a little bit what I would call ratchet, and she likes to go a little too much hood, which we all know that we're all capable of, but come on now. Again, I'm sure this is going to garner some hate in my direction. It doesn't matter that she's black. It honestly doesn't matter that she's hood or ratchet, in my opinion. Which she is, but we'll leave it at that. It matters that she comes across to me as someone who is trying to play that card and garner votes from that demographic. And it's just, it doesn't work well. Again, in my opinion. And also, we've talked about it a million times. Who knows what of it is actually, real? What isn't just sound clips that some organization or some person or media outlet isn't using to purposely, make her look worse or better for that matter, but out of context. You just never know. But the things that I see and hear across various forms of media just come off as ridiculous. Same with AOC, same with Harris. Definitely same with Maxine Waters. Lord. I'm all for term limits. And I think everyone should be. If you're not for vastly smaller term limits, then you probably need to reevaluate some things. There is no reason for any of these folks to be in their position for 3 or 4 decades. Good Lord. 2 decades. 1 decade would be even pushing it for most of them. The corruption is too real. They're too dead set in their ways that have been polished and perfected and driven by some sort of corruption. At any rate, all of the current folks who think they're going to try and make a run at the next election are, in my opinion, not qualified, B, just don't have what it takes. We probably talked about this in some of the early episodes. Just based on the fact of how some of the world is, it probably would not be the best decision. Again, these are just my opinions, but probably would not be the best decision to have a woman as commander-in-chief. Now, that being said, I have no problem with it. I that is not sexist by any means, or misogynistic, or any of those things. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with how that would be seen from a global standpoint. Now, that may not actually be the case. We won't actually know until it happens or we try it. But I feel like there are enough countries in the world. Good Lord. Sorry, old executive producer over there was really having a go at a scratch. But there are enough countries and cultures still in the world that I don't think would see that as a positive thing, or could possibly see that as a weak thing, and we certainly don't need that anytime soon. Again, not being sexist, simply looking out for the fact that we don't need every swinging country that feels like women have no business being in a position of power taking a swing at us because there is one. I really don't know, honestly, at the end of the day, how I feel about it. Again, I personally wouldn't have a problem with it if I didn't think that it could go poorly overall. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, much like Brussels sprouts, you don't know if you like them till you try. So I'm not against it. I just have some built-in fears, I guess. I'm a Gen Xer, so it seems like it would be a bad idea. Again, I may be wrong, but I don't know if coming off of the current administration, moving into that would be the best idea or the best choice. Time will tell, obviously, but I do think that some of them, mainly Crockett and AOC, are just writing their own jokes at this point, and I honestly don't see that as even being something that we have to worry about. Newsom and some of the others, okay. I mean, for everyone in California, I'm sorry. For everyone who has fled California, hopefully Newsom stays there and continues to ruin his little spot of the world. I genuinely don't think that he has anything good to bring to the table. But again, I am certainly in no position to speak of these things from an educated standpoint. These are just my opinions, much like everything else. It is what it is. But again, time will tell. As far as Hollywood and all of the big mainstream musicians and everyone else throwing a hissy fit and coming out with all these statements, or, don't come to my show if you support Trump or any of that stuff. Christ, get over yourselves, first of all. Second of all, then okay, then don't. Make it so you have to somehow show your political affiliation at the door, and then turn away all those people and let me know how that works out for you. This literally is just continuing to harbor and persevering, I guess, if you will, the hate and divisiveness it's not helping anything. It's really not. Um, and I guess I really wish that this wasn't a solo show, just so I didn't have to go down these rabbit holes. I genuinely hate all of this stuff. I really do. Like, I just want to go outside and touch grass, but it's, like 33 degrees, so I'm not going to do that right now. But, this is not as much of my wheelhouse as it seems to be. I just want to go on about my day and do daily things and, what I have to do to survive and everything else, which I know all of you guys also do. So until these things really start hitting home a lot harder, then I just let them do what they're going to do. And honestly, that's all we can do anyhow. But I guess it makes for topics, right? Speaking of 33 degrees, we may have no snow, but I know a lot of you do, and it is cold, and I believe, as near as I can tell, there's conflicting stories, but apparently the Pacific Northwest is having some crazy flooding and everything else, so I hope everybody up in that neck of the woods is safe and going to make it through okay. I hope everyone around the globe is safe and going to make it okay. But with the cold comes a lot of things. Make sure to check your batteries and your tires in your cars, guys. Nobody wants to be stranded. Keep gas, don't run it to empty like I do. Or if you do, at least know the limitations of your gas gauge. Also, I've noticed an increasing trend around here. Brake lights, guys. You know that those don't just last forever, right? That and registrations. If you choose to not abide by registering your vehicle, well, then you have that right to do so. I wish you well in that venture. But I see a lot of expired tags. And I think a lot of that, obviously, times are tough. And so people choose to feed their families before registering their car. But also another thing, and it's even caught me off guard, is Utah no longer sends out the reminders. So maybe there's some folks out there that don't know that. But the amount of vehicles that I see on a daily basis driving just back and forth to work that have one brake light, and it's the third, literally no taillights whatsoever, just the third brake light, up top of their Kia or, I don't know, Honda or whatever, is astounding. So check your lights, guys. Check your lights, maybe make sure you have a jack. Check your spare. Just just little PSAs like that. Maybe it's something you haven't thought about because you've been too worried about trying to figure out how to pay your bills or feed your family. I get that, but it's definitely something to think about because I know for me, I'm getting older and things are hard to see. So when there's not 3 or at least 2 big blaring brake lights in front of me, I go, well, that's weird. That car's getting closer, but I don't see any brake lights. So, just something to think about. Either way, I hope everyone is doing well. Hopefully you are at least somewhat ready for Christmas. If you are even able to be in the Christmas spirit. It doesn't feel like it for me by any means, but I'm trying. I'm trying for the kids. Luckily, they're old enough that they know Santa's been dead for years. Santa drinks because they cry. But hopefully everyone can be safe running around, trying to gather up last minute things, all of that stuff. I hope everyone can just keep the dirty side down and come out of this holiday season unscathed, other than your wallet, and hopefully not even that. Hopefully we will talk again before Christmas, but just in case, I wish you all a Merry Christmas. We will definitely talk before New Year's, but if you don't get a chance to listen again before then, I wish you all a happy and prosperous New Year. Again, stay safe, guys. Look out for one another. Keep your head on a swivel. I know it's too soon, but luckily there were some folks in Australia with their head on a swivel. It could have been worse, I guess, is the takeaway. Sadly, anyone was harmed, but it definitely could have been worse. Don't let your guards down at all, please. I love each and every one of you, and we will talk soon. Okay, guys? In the meantime, cheers.